Good evening, everybody. Glad to see you all here. Today is the City Council meeting for September 17th, and we will open today's meeting at 6 o'clock. And can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Martinez?
Here.
Councilmember White is absent. Councilmember Voigt?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Laura? Absent. Mayor Finn?
Here, thank you. And so we do have excused absences for Mayor Pro Tem Laura and Councilmember White. Do we have any other future excused absences? No? Okay. And so we will open this evening's meeting with an invocation by Pastor Lundy, and then immediately following that, we'll have a pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Martinez.
Father in heaven, we thank you for being so good to us. Thank you for giving us your son Jesus, that we might have life, as your word says, that we are to abide in you. And as we abide in you, we bear fruit. And we ask tonight that you would bless our counsel with wisdom, with vision to see the things that aren't currently there yet. Bless them with courage. Bless the young people that are here, Lord. Keep them on your path. We commit our time to you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, please stand for the pledge. Place your right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda tonight? Okay, seeing none, thank you. And Nicole, do we have any public comments for any items that are not on tonight's agenda?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay, thank you. And on to the consent calendar. Do we have any items to be pulled for discussion? Okay, seeing none, can I get a motion?
Sure, I will make a motion to approve items D1 through D7.
I'll second.
Thank you, and roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. And then on to item E, and we've got lots of visitors here tonight for that, and that's our youth council report. So thank you for being here, everyone, and we'll turn the time over to Councilmember Martinez.
Hello, thank you, Mayor. So today we have a couple of dual purposes. We have a swearing in and a report. So I believe we want to do the report first, or are we going to swear in? Okay, so we have some members from the last meeting that volunteered to do our report. So if you may come forward, introduce yourselves and have it.
Good morning, Youth Council. My name is Carlos Luna. I'm part of the Youth Council for this year.
My name's Asala Veyu, and this is my first year in the Youth Council.
Over the reportings from last meeting, we talked about our elected officials that we can request. Our year is turning out great. We have, I believe, 18 members this year, much bigger than last year, and we're planning to do so much more.
In the meeting, we went over the year goals, and that kind of involved the involvement of people within, of youth within like political environments, and kind of familiarizing high school students with the youth council and with like government policies and that kind of thing, and getting more involved in the community.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the report.
Go ahead, Nicole. This is Deputy Clerk's going to take it from here.
So we can do the swearing in. So if I could have Youth Council just stand. It might be easiest if you guys just stand where you are. I, and say your name. I,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
I take this obligation freely
I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and I will well and faithfully
and I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
All right, congratulations.
All right, that's awesome. I'd like to invite the entire youth council to come on up. Let's take a big photo, okay? Come on up. Let's get them up here. Up top there? Okay.
Parents, if you want pictures.
Come on up, don't be shy. Welcome, Jessica. Nice to meet you. Come on. Jessica. Nice to meet you. Jessica, we'll get you scooting up front.
Tall ones in the back.
Jessica.
Everybody all the way, yeah, all the way up to the countertop there.
Congratulations, you guys. We look forward to having you.
Just one more comment.
I think this one was here.
Oh, no. Everyone numbered.
That one's yours? Yeah. Probably doesn't matter.
Unless you have yours worked in just right. I don't
Only one of them has an, only one of them has an eject button.
know. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the hot seat, that's yours, so.
it's not this one.
All right, Mr. Martinez, back to you.
Yeah, I just want to mention, so I want to, again, thank everyone, thank the parents. Again, the support that they need through this is shown here today, so we want to thank all of you, because we know take time out of your schedules and so forth. And I want to thank the council. I have a lot of high hopes this year. The youth council, we have a great number. And from that last meeting, just the comments and the discussion we had is already making a tone of what we're going to see this year. So I feel great things happening, good input I'm going to feel from you. So we'll be giving you tasks from the council to do so we can get your opinion in different areas. But I'm really looking forward to working with you, and I'm glad and very thankful. It's a great number, and we have a nice mix, so I'm really excited.
Thank you. Did you have anything to add yourself?
No, I would just like to say thank you guys for taking this leap. It's fun, it's interesting, ask lots of questions, and really learn what the government does for you and what your city does for you as well. I think it's something I took for granted as a high school student and even growing up further. So this is really exciting that you guys are here as well. I mentioned to Councilmember Martinez earlier today that I would like to get your guys' input on our market nights that we have had downtown and maybe get some perspective from you guys as well on that. So just something that maybe we'd be able to add in for you guys.
All right, thank you. You guys are a wonderful site. I appreciate you being here. And along with Market Night, give us some input on Parks and Rec as well. And so we appreciate that. And again, thank you for being here. So if you have things to do or homework or something like that, you can be excused if you like, or you can stick around and bear with us. So appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. Thank you, parents, as well.
All right, thank you.
So with that, we're going to move on to item F, which is our public hearings, and we do have one item. So any one person may address the city council. There's a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing of time to another person. State law prohibits the city council from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. This meeting will be open to the public and conducted in a virtual format to be inclusive of all participation preferences. Public comment participation is encouraged by emailing any comments to the city clerk's office or by calling in or using the phone number provided on the front of the agenda. Anyone in person wishing to speak can do so by filling out a form in the back of the room and handing it to a staff member. So a correction that I made is we can bring up, if it's in reference to any of the items of discussion, we can address your comments. This was just the non-agenda items that I read, so I apologize for that. So with that, we will first hear a staff report by Ms. Carol Kendrick, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This will be very brief. So Plan Number 2024-0100 is a request to consider adoption of the Riverside County Ordinance 523 by adding Chapter 8.56, Riverside County Ordinance Number 5.23, Control of Vectors, to the Beaumont Municipal Code. So the city traditionally uses the County of Riverside Department of Environmental Health to provide vector control services, including mosquito surveillance and control and advice on other vectors. A MOU was approved by the City Council on June 20th of 2023. As part of that MOU, it does require that we adopt the county's ordinance related to control of vectors. This item was advertised in the Press Enterprise on September 6th, 2024. Staff has not received any comments in opposition, a neutral position, or in favor of the proposal. So at this time, staff would recommend that you hold a public hearing and waive the first full reading and approve by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, adding Chapter 8.56, Control of Vectors, to the Beaumont Municipal Code, adopting by reference Riverside County Ordinance Number 523 as amended through 523.3, an ordinance of Riverside County relating to the control of vectors, and incorporating by reference Ordinance Number 75 coded as 8.36, Control of Vectors of the Riverside County Code of Ordinances. This concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thank you. And so we will open the public hearing at 6:13. And do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public hearing at 6:13 as well, and I'll hand it over to council for any comments or questions and discussion. Ms. Martinez, go ahead.
Yeah, just to clarify then, so this is more of a, this is not an add-on then, right? This is a cleanup on this one?
So this is a requirement of the MOU, so,
Yeah, okay.
yeah.
That's, I was trying to get into the right wording, but yes, basically. All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. I didn't have any comments myself, so could I get a motion?
Sure. I will move to waive the first full reading and approve by title only an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, adding Chapters 8.56, Control of Vectors, to the Beaumont Municipal Code, adopting by reference Riverside County Ordinance Number 523 as amended through 523.3, an ordinance of the City of Riverside, the County of Riverside relating to the control of vectors and incorporating by reference Ordinance Number 75. Codified as Chapter 8.36, Control of Vectors, in the Riverside County Code of Ordinances.
I'll second.
All right, thank you. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so on, on to our action items. Item G1 is to, the item up for, title is Receive and File the Parks Master Plan Findings in our Capital Improvement Project P17, and then we'll have a staff report by Mr. Doug Story.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm very excited to give you all an update tonight on our progress through our Community Services and Parks Master Plan process. This has been a great opportunity for us to begin the process to have a complete document that helps guide the future of parks, of community services, of recreational programming, of facilities for recreational purposes for the city of Beaumont. And so we have with us tonight RHA, and they're going to give a presentation. One of the things that we were most excited about in starting this process with RHA was some of the outreach emphasis that they put on gathering information from our community. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight is after hearing from our community, what are some of the trends, what are some of the things that are coming to the surface for us to discuss in our parks master plan process. So I'll invite to the podium Mr. Doug Grove with RHA, and he's going to take us through the presentation tonight. I believe there's also a printed version at your seats. If you would like to follow along, you may.
Welcome, Doug.
Let me find this here.
It's the Doug and Doug show tonight.
It's the Doug and Doug Show.
There it is. All right. Well, I want to give you a compliment. That was the fastest I've ever gotten to our agenda item in my entire career. And I've been doing this for close to 40 years. I was like, it's not even 6:15 yet. So thank you. Appreciate that.
It's my anniversary tonight. We're moving things along.
There you go. All right. I got to remember that for future meetings. Well, thank you again. It's great to be here. We're really excited about where we're at today. And just as Doug said, this is just a findings report. This isn't the final plan. This is just everything we've done with the community to date. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. You know who we are when you approved our contract. RHA, we're local in Riverside, been doing this for close to 40 years. And we have Next Practice Partners. Unfortunately, Nile is stuck in a council meeting in Durango and on a fee increase, which we know how those can go. So he's unable to join us tonight, but I will adequately cover his area. We also had ETC Institute, which did our survey, which we're going to talk about tonight. So we'll cover them as well. Just a little history on where we've come. We're actually still in the public outreach and engagement. Majority of it's done, but obviously we want to present our findings to the community as well and get their input. We had our park and facility assessments. Those are complete. Program analysis is pretty much complete. When we put this together, it was in process, but I think it's just about wrapped up. Coming up is equity mapping and level of service, capital improvement plan, and draft and final master plan somewhere between December and March of 25. So just kind of remind, I think we talked about this before, but there's the Trust for Public Lands, which is a national organization, does a 10-minute walk plan. They look at every city and to see how your residents are close to a 10-minute walk from a park. So Beaumont is 48%, national median is 55%, so it's not too bad, but we obviously have a place for growth, so it's just a good benchmark to look at. Just some things on population coming out of Esri, which is here over in Redlands. Obviously a growing community. That's not anything that we don't know yet. Projected to be close to about 70,000, 72,000 by 2038. So definitely want to be planning for the future. Very actively growing community. Race-wise, becoming more diverse as we move along. You can see from where we were in 2010 to 2038. Much more diverse population, and then same thing with the Hispanic population. Age, this is interesting. Beaumont's really kind of staying pretty level as far as all the age groups. So obviously people are going to be moving out, I guess, at some point in time, but the projections are not really changing, as you can see on the numbers as we move forward. A little bit of increase in the older generation, obviously, from where we were 12, 15 years ago. Income levels, Beaumont is higher than the state average as far as per capita and as far as median income and well above what's happening in the United States. So that's shows you have a community that has some disposable income to spend on parks and different recreation activities. Just a quick breakdown on for how you compare to California, United States as far as foreign-born, English as a second language. Disabilities, you're pretty much about the same on the last three, except for persons in poverty, you're very low. National average is 11.6, so Beaumont 8.8, which is a good sign again. That goes along with the amount of money that people are bringing in, gives you more room for disposable income for recreation. We work with a company that puts together kind of a national average and compares Beaumont and looks at all the major things. This is not a survey, but it's how they look at what items are bought in stores, what activities that they participate in. So you can kind of see the national average is the blue. You can see where Beaumont in all of these different sports, with the exception of softball, is well above or is above the national average. Looking at exercise, adult type of activities, aerobics, yoga, walking, again, everything 100 or above. So Beaumont, very active community is what it's telling us, and some of the results you'll see later definitely show that. As we get into some of the more unique things, bicycling, backpacking, fishing, obviously fishing not as high, don't have a lot of lakes around here, but bicycling, mountain biking, rock climbing, those things very high in Beaumont compared to the national average. So our approach and what we did for the community. The first step we did was to meet with the public and meet with the directors, meet with mayor and council. We met with you as well, looking at the recreation operations teams, stakeholder and focus groups, and then several community meetings in person, and got the results. And so all of that information we gathered from that. Also got information from the website. So we have bmtparks.com. I think you're well of that. If you're here in the audience, you're not aware of that, please go to that. That is specifically for this project. There's a place you can go down and you can give us input. We do have received emails and input from that. So it's been very good. It also has information on where we've come so far. So we did a park and facility assessment, and this is basically looking at all of your parks. And we even had Noble Creek Park in there, even though it's not a city-owned park, it is a park your residents use. So we went ahead and reviewed that as well. And again, noted that it's not maintained by the city. I wanted to make sure that we looked at all the parks, because I guarantee if you asked 100 residents, they'd probably all think that it's a city park. So that's why we took a look at it anyways. Created a parks map that kind of shows where all the parks are at. Pretty spread out over the community, which is pretty good. We have some of these that we're doing where they're very clustered in older areas, and the new areas don't have a lot of parks. So good to see that they are spread out. But as you saw from the 10-minute walk, we could do a little better on getting people closer to parks and not having to drive to them. Every single park, we did an analysis. What we do is we take a geographical information system device into the field. We document every element you have, whether it's a trash can, a bench, a basketball court, building, playground, and assess what the condition is of those. Those go into a large GIS database, which we can pass on to the city when we're done. And that documents everything you have. So if you can say, I want to know how many poor benches we have in the city, you'd be able to see the quantity and where they're located at. So this is just an example map of DeForge Park, but every park we have, including the Noble Creek has one of these maps. We look at the parks in 4 different categories: access and connectivity, condition and functionality, safety and comfort, and maintenance, giving them a rating of 1 to 5, which with great being 4 to 5, good 3, fair 2, and poor 0 to 1. So this is where your parks fall, and I showed all 4 of the categories because if you look at just the overall assessment score, you might go, well, how come Three Rings Ranch, which looks really great, has a 3.3? Well, you can see that it's got a maintenance score of 4, which is great. That's in good shape. Condition functionality is close to a 4, but safety and comfort and access and connectivity, and that involves, is it close to a bike path? Is there easy ways to get to the park in a way? So those are factors that you can't always control with an existing park, but we want to know, if we're going to do improvements there, what are some things you want to improve? So if you look down the entire list, you'll see a lot of the maintenance scores are 4 and above, which is great. Your staff's doing a great job of taking care of things. And then we see some that are a little bit lower. And this isn't necessarily a, yeah, you're doing great or bad. It's like, this is where we are today. And so as we start finding out what the community wants to do, these are some areas that we need to address. So it's just a great, and we have a lot more detail on this if you want to get into a deeper dive, but this is just kind of an overview on where you're at right as of a few months ago. We also looked at the facility, your community center. Architect looked at it from accessibility standpoint, roofing, all of the interiors as a whole, spreadsheet legend that goes with all these numbers on here. So they've looked at everything as far as condition of the facility. We reviewed this with recreation staff, with Doug and his team. And so this is something that if you want to get into more detail, we can do that later, but just wanted to know that it has been done. So here's the meat of the project. This is what's exciting and maybe a little overwhelming, is the statistically valid survey. This is a mail-out survey that comes from ETC Institute out of Kansas City. We don't get involved at all in how it's distributed to the community, but all of the information that we gather from the beginning through all the meetings, the website, goes into taking the questions so that they apply to Beaumont. So we have some of the questions are similar from city to city, so we can make sure that we have a benchmark, but the elements that we ask them about are specific to Beaumont and things that we heard about from staff, from you all, from the community. So the goal was to get 400 completed surveys. We had 416, which is good. This survey is created so that it has a 95% level of confidence with a 4.7 margin of error, which basically says if you did this over and over again, you would get the same results with 95% level of confidence. So it's we can get into the details of how it's distributed and how it works, but just let you know that it does work very well, and that's why we use this company, because it's very accurate. This just shows the demographics, which if you were to look at the chart we showed earlier, matches up. They work very hard to make sure that the results and the answers match up with the demographics of the city, so we have a good representation of the population in the community. Question on how many have visited cities, Beaumont's parks and facilities during the past year. 81%. National average is like 65, so that's really good. So your community likes the parks. That's great. And we'll see if we can find out why they don't visit that in future questions here and maybe make it even higher. How often do you visit? So pretty spread evenly, but if you look at all the numbers, less than once a month is only 24%. So 1 to 5 times, you're almost at 75% that are going there 1 to 5 times a week. So, a week, so that's good. How would you rate the physical condition of the facilities? Good, 51%, fair, 34%, excellent, 9%, only 6% poor. That's really good compared to other cities we work with. So you've got basically almost 90% that are in the fair to excellent range. What our goal with this plan will be, how can we get some of those fair to turn to good and good to excellent? And sometimes it's just small repairs, small changes, small additions that this community is looking for to make those to go up. Please check, and these aren't all of the questions. These are the ones we've picked out that kind of give you an overview. The whole booklet's about probably 1/4 of an inch thick, so which I think Doug can get you a copy, and we can go into a deeper dive on that if you'd like to do that later as well. So this just tells us why they do not visit the facilities more often. So top ones here: lack of amenities you want to use, lack of shade, that's very popular now, lack of restrooms. So those 3 things usually circulate to the top in almost every city. We know it's hot. We know that people need to use the restroom. The other things are important to people, but those are the 3 top ones. So we'll look at ways we can help solve those problems to get people to use the parks. This is important here. How do you learn about the city's parks, facilities, and recreation programs? A lot of people want to get rid of the city recreation guide. A lot of cities say, oh, we don't need a paper guide, we don't need that. Well, it's not number 1, but it's number 3 by a pretty good margin. So obviously social media is the biggest way, and that's pretty common in every city we work with. Word of mouth is big, but the recreation guides are still out there. They're still popular. They still want to use them. So I wouldn't recommend, I don't think Doug has said you're going to get rid of yours, but we have some cities that say we don't need them anymore, and then the surveys come back and they go, oh, I guess we kind of do. So it's important. So from a programming standpoint in events, how many participated in programs, events in the past year? 43%, that's a little bit low. Usually we're over 55% for that for national average. So again, trying to figure out why that is, and we'll see that here in a little bit. And what can we do with our programs and events to make them, more attended by people? Some of that may be you have a commuter group, population that gets home late, can't get to some of the recreation programs. So there are times we can do those programs at a different time to make it more accessible. I'm getting dry mouth, so. All right, a little better, here we go. How many programs, events has your household participated in? Again, 58% or 2 to 3, 58%, 1, 21%. So again, you had a lot that have participated in your household, in your events and programs. The 5% is pretty, it's not, 7+ is going to be an awful lot for any city to take on. So again, good numbers there from your participation. How would you rate the overall quality? Again, great number, 74% good or excellent. Even fair, 24%, only 2% say poor. That number is usually probably around 10 to 15 in a lot of agencies. So programming is doing great, but how many, let's see if we can get some of the good to excellent and move some of those fair over to good or excellent as well. Then this asks, why don't you participate in programs more often? I don't know what is offered. That's pretty common. Even though you have all of the social media and all of the advertising and your guide, that usually is a question that is pretty high. A little higher here in this one than we usually see. Program times are not convenient, usually higher, so you obviously have your programming going on at the right time. Program is not offered, so everything else is pretty consistent. But not knowing what is offered probably tells us we need to do a little bit better job of getting the information out so everybody knows what's going on. So these charts here are basically looking at the dark number is strongly agree, light blue is agree, and gray is neutral. So what makes your level of agreement with these potential benefits of the parks makes Beaumont a more desirable place to live. So you're looking at 80% feel that that's what makes Beaumont a great place is better parks. Preserves open space very high. Down to the bottom, provides jobs and professional development for youth, relatively low as far as a priority for the residents in this community. So we'll look at these answers as we go through the planning stage to make those better. This is a good question to ask. I know you're not planning on floating a bond, but it's just good to know what your residents feel about additional money that would be allocated, that they'd be willing to spend. So 38% or almost 40% said they would be willing to spend nothing. $3 to $4 a month, 20%, 5 to 6, 19%. So if you were to take the top 3 or 4, you're looking at just about over half that would be willing to spend some amount of dollars over. So as we move forward and we start to put the CIP together and see how much a lot of this is going to cost, we can then look at potential funding streams from whether it's whatever we decide. We kind of know where the residents stand on those issues. This one, if you had $100, how would you allocate funds? Biggest one, improving the maintenance of the existing parks and pools, facilities, is number one. The rest of them kind of spread out evenly. And that's usually pretty common. People would rather improve what they have, unless they're all brand new, which is pretty rare, than they would to do new. And this is, how do you feel for the city to provide high-quality parks, facilities, and programs? Very important, 80%. Very rarely does that fall very low. It's always a very high number, but we like to make sure that we see how the residents feel about that, because that then helps us then justify why we want to do improvements and why we want to make changes to some of the programs. So this is we call it the priority investment rating. This takes all of those questions we've seen, plus the ones we didn't go over tonight, and just basically creates a high priority, medium priority, low priority. Just because something's at the bottom doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that it's not a priority for the majority of the population. So it looks at what do people need, what do people feel is not being met, and then what how important is that they need to get it. So multi-use, the hiking trails are number one. That's really common. That's usually at the top three. Outdoor swimming pool, pretty high, and that's higher than it is. And we're doing one with Eastvale, and that was number one, actually. I was telling Doug earlier that swimming pools usually don't get to the top very high. So it's obviously something that the community really wants, because usually those will fall down closer to the middle. Restrooms, shade, picnic area, shade trees, very common. Community center, you have a very nice one now. Obviously, with the expansion of the city to the south and west, they're looking for something probably in that area, as we'll dig into that deeper as we go through the plan. Pickleball courts, it's interesting. We were doing the Carlsbad Master Plan in 2012, and we had never heard of pickleball, and a group showed up and told us all about it, as they do. And so ever since then, we've been waiting to see how this is going up the chart, because for about the first 5-6 years, it didn't even make the chart, or it was the very bottom. So now it's in here in the medium range. A couple other agencies, it's actually in the high priority now, so it's definitely not a trend. It's here to stay, as we all know. So we'll be addressing that in our planning as well as the other facilities that they're asking for. Do the same thing for programs and activities. Adult and fitness and wellness programs with your population base. That's very important. It's very important in a lot of cities right now. We have an aging population in general that are looking for things to do. They're active. They're not sitting around, doing nothing. They want to go do something. Community and cultural special events. I mean, Beaumont's got some great events that you do every year, so obviously people like those, want more of those. Swim lessons, community gardening, exercise classes. So we've talked with Ashley and Doug about this and how can we do some of these things, and we'll start focusing on when we do our program assessment as we wrap this plan up in a month or a couple months. We'll be able to look at these needs and then do an assessment of what you have and some things you can change to make it better for everybody. Just do a quick. This is just more to identify that we're on par with the demographics of the city, so 50% female, 49% male. That's consistent with what you have in the city. Again, is your household Hispanic, Latino, or Hispanic? And again, matches with the demographics. So we got questions to everybody that needed to represent. Again, another question just on race and ethnicity. Matches very closely to the demographics, which is why that company is so good at what they do. Next steps, finishing up our program assessments, pretty much done right now. We also have the same exact survey. This was mailed out randomly, so no one knew who was going to get it. I don't know if anybody here got one. Anybody here get one? But the same exact survey is online. So we can take those results. Right now, as of last week, we had 221 responses. We want to get that over 500. And then what we'll do is we'll take that survey results, compare them to the ones we did in the mail-out one I just showed you, and we'll see how they compare. The online one, obviously, can be ballot stuff that people can send. Hey, everybody go on there and tell me they want pickleball, and it may rise higher. Typically, what we find is that the online survey is pretty close to the one that's mailed out. There are some outliers. There are some things where some groups jump in there, but we're pushing that. We'll probably have that wrap up here in the next few weeks. Next step is determining the levels of service inventory, so looking at what you have in your parks. What do we feel, based on what the community said, are the levels of service that you need to have? It's kind of a complicated process. We'll show it to you when we get it done at our next presentation, but it really begins to show you what you need to be improving to make your community happy. The equity maps, which are pretty cool, do I have one in here? No, I guess I don't have one in here. But they will take every element in the city, every element you have in a park, whether it's a baseball field, pickleball, tennis, restroom, and we'll do a map that shows a bubble on what area that serves. And the gaps on where you're not serving are things where we need to look at improving stuff and putting in new facilities. We'll have a visioning workshop, and we'll be doing a capital improvement plan development, very detailed CIP. Every element we're going to do is going to go into a large Excel spreadsheet that then generates phasing. We can change when it's done. We can put all the costs in. We can be added to later. So we'll go through that later when we do our final presentation. We'll go through that with you as well. And then a draft report, and then just remind you to, if you haven't been there before, visit bmtparks.com and give us your input. So that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Ms. White.
Sure. Thank you for that presentation. I really appreciate it.
Sure, you bet.
I love data, so I always like to see it, and that's exciting for me. I think the participation's great, and I really want to thank the community that filled it out for sure. One thing I wanted to highlight, and you did hit it through one of those slides, was just the restrooms. Being important for our community. My child is out playing soccer all the time, and we are at some parks sometimes that lack restrooms, and I will see kids run to go into the weeds. So, and I get it. Got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yep.
The other thing I just wanted to mention is I know that currently we run a senior center out of our Chatney Community Center. Are senior centers something that we look at during the facilities assessment? Are those typically something that's included?
It'll be coming on right now as far as, we looked at some of the, obviously the programs and things very senior related, those top ones at the top. So that's something that will drive us planning, do we need a new just senior center? We saw community center was pretty high, so does that become a community/senior center, where you have a dedicated area for seniors and dedicated area for the community. So, yeah, that's the next step as we get into some of the levels of service and then planning what's actually going to be happening in each of the parks.
Okay, great. Yeah, that's definitely something I would like to continue to see a focus on. And then one last comment that I just have is with regards to the online survey. Is that something that we're pushing out through social media currently? That might be a staff question.
Yes, correct. So we've put it on social media and through some different venues. And we'll continue to do it until we get to that number that we're trying to hit.
Okay, are we trying to get 400 for that one?
Yeah, I think
That's kind of the goal,
we
kind
wanna
of
try to get to
yeah,
later
400 to
400.
500.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, so thank you, very thorough, detailed, I appreciate that. I was at one of those first community with the pickleball people there, so I remember that. So thank you for reaching out to everyone and listening to everyone, I appreciate that. My number one concern also, like Councilmember Voigt, with the restroom conditions. It's the number one thing I hear from people besides, the field conditions and stuff is restrooms. Sure. And, we've always talked about staff, it's difficult to maintain, and we have vandalism issues and stuff like everyone has to try to keep that from, going in that directions. But the fact that we have one in a certain place is, I think, the first step. So I thank you for, at 36%, also agree. So I thank you for keeping that there. I had a question when I looked at the DeForge map. I didn't see the restrooms on the key, but I did see a building. Is that where I'm assuming?
Yeah, we probably need to change it to restroom. It is the
Okay.
building, yeah. So and that has an assessment number assigned to it in the GIS system, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So, so I thank you for addressing that, because like you, I also want to see how that goes and what your suggestions are. Could it be, at the different parks, smaller, how, that kind of stuff if we need one. You answered a lot of questions, because a lot of my questions have to do a little bit later, I think. It sounds like the meat and potato part of the assessment. So you did say that you would be recommending the need for additional facilities if that assessment shows that down further, okay?
Yep.
And then you also will be recommending how to modify existing parks and so forth to meet the needs from what the community.
Yeah, we'll have a list of improvements for each park and the cost related to that, so we can, decide if that's what you want to put there, and then it goes into the overall budget.
Very well. And I'd like for staff to talk with, I think the youth council would really like to jump in on this and comment on that skate park thing there at the mid priority, which is pretty good, high priority.
Yeah, we can
for
still meet
that.
with them too. I was excited to see that many kids
Yeah,
there. That's
the-
great. So, yeah, we can still meet with them and get their input. That's why I said the public engagement process is kind of still ongoing to a degree, because we're going to take all this information and present to the community again as well, so they can give us input and say, hey, you missed this, or this is great. So
Is
we
there an
can.
age limit for the
Oh,
survey?
no, not anybody can take it. So, yeah, push it out to them and.
That's good.
Great.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, the very thorough and excited. There's a lot of data here. I
Yeah.
can absorb the data. So.
Yes. I was just gonna make one other comment, and that's the pool splash pad. I don't think is surprising to us.
Yeah, no.
But it gave us a little chuckle there.
Yeah.
So I have a question on timeline. Remind us, when did those surveys start going out? And then if we don't reach the goal of the number of surveys back in, is there a time limit where we say, okay, we're gonna we're gonna stop and then get to work and assess the data that we have.
Yeah, we're not slowing down the process that we're going through. Those are just, so I would say we'd like to probably have it wrapped up in a couple weeks. I mean.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, with probably no later than the end of October.
And
Or, I
when
mean,
did
the
the,
end of.
and when did the survey first go out?
The ETC went out in
Well,
the.
you about the online survey?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Did you mean
The online survey's
The-
been
the
out
writ-
for
the written-
about.
The written mailed one went out first, right?
Yeah.
The written one, mailed one
And
went out
when was
first
that?
summer. That was in.
That was in July.
July.
June, July, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then we usually wait until those results are coming back in before we send the online one out. We don't want to confuse people that got, because part of the ETC survey is they can do an online one-use only survey. So, so this one, so we'd say this has been out for probably about 3 weeks, the online one, and we can push it for probably through middle of October and then probably shut it down.
Okay, all right, and then I'll echo the restroom. But the reason, part of my question was when they talk about lack of shade in some of the parks that we've recently upgraded and put shade structures in, I
Sure.
wondered if
And there's
that
been.
score would drop on
Correct. There's a
those.
couple of parks on here that the first assessment was done. We just opened the new, so Sunny Hills is on there. We just put a new playground at Sunny Hills, which now incorporates a shade structure. And so that score will get updated before the final version.
Gotcha.
But yeah, there's a couple of our parks, correct. There's 4 of them that have the newer shade, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then question for you, Mr. Story, is anything from this that has caught your attention to where, okay, hey, this is what we're gonna work on next, or anything to kind of report and keep us occupied until we hear back?
I think it reaffirms some of the, the positive chatter and the people who are communicating to you individually, like, hey, here's some of my concerns in the park. I think it is solidifying those conversations like that you might have with a single individual, but now this looks at it in a much broader sense and say, hey, this is information and data that's coming to us through a statistically valid survey, right? And so I think hopefully it provides clarity for you as council to be able to say, hey, I know it was just one neighbor that caught me when I was walking my dog and they wanted to tell me about the restroom situation, right? And then you don't feel like, man, am I just complaining, or is it just that one neighbor who caught me? Now that I feel some data behind those conversations, because these are all things that I've had conversations with each of you about, whether it be restrooms and adding more restrooms or the pool conversation, right? And we hear that pop up from time to time. I think Stewart Park is going to check just a lot of great boxes for our community. I mean, it's one park in one area, but there's a lot of great things that are coming in that process that aren't necessarily reflected in our community when it comes to the gap surveys and things that we're going to get from RHA. But I think we should feel good in some of the conversations that we are hearing from the community. And this kind of is that data behind it.
I appreciate it, thank you. So, not seeing any other lights on, I will move that we receive and file the Parks Master Plan findings, the Capital Improvement Project P17.
I'll second.
Thank you, roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Dougs.
Look forward to seeing you in a few months.
All right. On to item G2, Plan 2023 through -0998, our Downtown Revitalization Plan, and we have staff report by Joel Building. Welcome, Joel.
This will help to turn it on. So I have a brief presentation to talk about the finalized plan. Let's see. Here we go. So a little bit of history. This started at the very tail end of 2022 and has gone through an extensive internal outreach and discussion process, as well as an external outreach and plan formulation process. The last time this was before council was in May of this year, where there was sort of an overview and update. The plan has been finalized now and is ready for your final consideration. Again, just to orient everyone as to the boundaries of the plan, this is really focused on 6th Street and Beaumont Avenue, both sides of 6th Street down to the freeway, and then Beaumont up to 11th as sort of the core of the downtown revitalization efforts. That doesn't mean that the city won't look beyond this area just for continued redevelopment opportunities, but this is really the focal point for this plan to really energize the downtown revitalization efforts. So the plan includes sort of 3 primary methods of revitalization for the area. It's redevelopment of key sites, upgrades and modifications to our regulatory framework, and then also some operational changes to streets and how the city operates within the area. So redevelopment opportunities, pretty straightforward. There's a number of vacant properties or underutilized properties that are sort of primed for something new. The plan identifies 9 and then goes through some conceptual designs. It doesn't commit the city to anything in particular, but just sort of shows potential for each of those sites and something, sort of an aspirational goal to work with either property owners or if the city's in a direct acquisition position for the city to spearhead to. Sort of catalytic projects that stimulate additional investment and additional redevelopment on the surrounding areas. And there's sort of a mix of new residential opportunities to create a resident downtown population that could walk to businesses to support those, and then also new commercial activity focused on things that to really capture people that are leaving the city, to really bring those retail and dining opportunities here to make sure that people don't have to drive potentially to distant cities to satisfy certain needs. The regulatory updates, those would be more zoning code oriented, modifying the types of allowable uses here, making sure that we're not permitting uses that are no longer desirable within the downtown area, and then really focusing the regulations on promoting and enhancing the allowable uses, the really desired uses that the city's focused on. There's also some development standards to make sure that the properties are functioning as efficiently as possible, and then also some design guidelines to make sure new construction in the area or major renovation is consistent with the overall feel and look of downtown Beaumont, to make sure that sort of new buildings play nicely with the current neighborhoods. And then also some sign standards. There's some historic buildings down here where you'd see some more unique sign styles sort of leaning into that. There's also some opportunities for city signage to sort of brand the area and sort of set the area apart so you know once you enter, you're into someplace special. And then also, as I mentioned, operational changes, so modifying the streets to improve safety, to change really how circulation flows through the area, and then also looking at increasing the public parking supply to take that parking provision demand off of private developers so that the city can provide sort of shared parking across this entire area and let builders build as much and let private property owners maximize their development potential so that we're getting as much new development in the area. So really, the sort of overarching goals for this plan are downtown has been and should be the heart of the city, sort of the focal point for public programming and sort of the retail core in the area. And then just really exciting opportunities for people economically, residential, and then culturally too, with city programming that could happen in this area. And then really with that overall goal of safe and inviting for new people and for current residents to be able to come and feel safe in this area and be excited about all the new opportunities that will be coming. So if the council adopts this plan tonight, nothing immediately happens. This really, though, provides a framework for potentially as long as 2 decades worth of staff and city council activities. And this will be day-to-day incremental progress, but then 20 years from now, you can look back and say, wow, how did this all happen? But all major redevelopment efforts in downtown areas take that type of sustained long-term activity. But really, every major milestone within the plan will require Economic Development Committee input, Planning Commission input, and certainly City Council input, and certainly provide plenty of opportunities for the public to comment as we're going forward. And so this plan is before you tonight. We're recommending you adopt it as written. That concludes my presentation, and I'm here for any questions that you might have.
All right, thank you, Joel. And Nicole, do we have any public comments? And I forgot to ask for the last one. Do we have any at all?
I have no written requests for either. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Joel. And questions for council? Go ahead, Mr. Martinez.
Oh, thank you.
Waiting for the official invitation, huh?
Waiting for the rest down there. There's no one there. Question on the regulatory update process. So, if adopted, then for businesses that want to come in that want to put something there that doesn't follow the plan, they're fully aware or it's known that it's not allowed there, or are they allowed to still put something there and eventually it changes, or how does it work for incoming businesses that want to put something that is not a part of the new vision there?
So typically the process, once adopted, there will be a clear list of what's allowed, what's not allowed. There might be certain uses that require conditional use permits. If someone proposes something that's not allowed, there's still the opportunity for them to propose a change in the zoning for the property or modification to the overall zoning structure. But again, there's a giant process that goes through, a public process, a planning commission review, city council review. So if someone proposes something that's completely inconsistent with the plan, There's not an absolute no, there's an initial no, there's still a process that's provided though to change that, but that happens in public before you, for you to make the decision. There could be projects that don't fit, but are incredibly interesting or desirable for some reason where the city council would want to permit those, so there's still that avenue for private property owners to pursue that type of
So those
action.
businesses that are there now that want to improve can still do that? Or those businesses that want to, well, improve what's existing, can still do that? And if those businesses that exist don't conform with what the new vision is, they're still grandfathered in to the downtown, of course?
So yes, so legal non-conforming uses do have that ability to continue operating. They can still reinvest in their properties. There are certain mechanisms within state law that if the city council, for some reason, directed, hey, we have too many of a certain type of use, auto repair on Sixth Street or something, for example, if the city council wanted to take a more assertive stance toward moving those to other locations within the city, there are mechanisms to do that. There's nothing today on the books within the regulatory framework for Beaumont to do that, but that is something that's permissible within the overall legal structure that cities could exercise.
Now, how about if a business sells the business to someone else? Are they allowed to come in and continue that business?
As written today, yes, the regulations allow that, yeah.
Oh, they do allow that, okay. All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
Ms. Foy, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to compliment this project. I think that it embodies what we've been talking about and looking for. And I think something that we are all very excited for. So I think with, this strategy moving forward, we accomplish what we're hoping for. And I'm absolutely excited for the future to see what it looks like in 20 years and to look back on it. The roundabouts and slowing of traffic, I know are going to be a discussion to be had for sure. But the concept can be seen. I think it's likable, and I appreciate the work that has definitely gone into this, because I do think that the input of the community was poured into this as well. And so I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I really think that this is an exciting step forward.
All right, thank you. And I have a question. Is there any elements in there in terms of improvements or incentives and the focus on the existing residential downtown? We got some homes that could use a facelift and yards that could be redone and so forth. And I figure as a city, as we do stuff, we're going to make things nicer, and hopefully just that improvement alone may encourage, but I think it might take more than that to kind of jumpstart it. Any thoughts?
There's general discussion in the document about continuing those types of incentive programs. There hasn't been so much focus. Certainly the city doesn't, within its suite of incentive programs, doesn't offer anything for residential properties. That is something that we're looking at that would be sort of very much supportive of the revitalization plan, and something that might be before council here in the near future.
Okay, thank you. And Joel, I don't want to call you out on this, but I'm going to ask Robert a question. There is some work going on downtown. Can you explain the work with the sidewalks and then the status of, because we talked about lights before and so forth, because we're looking at perhaps doing another market night in December, which will have nighttime sooner and so forth, and just wanted to get an update from you on that.
Sure, absolutely. So the city is currently replacing the sidewalk along Beaumont Avenue in between 6th and 8th. It is textured, although not, I keep saying it, not a hotel lobby textured. It's more of a ADA trip prevention stamped concrete. It's also colored, kind of in the theme of the existing buildings. So our Public Works crew, led by Martin, is aggressively tearing out that concrete and replacing it right now. His expected finish time is mid-October for the concrete. For the lights, we did install one light at the southeast corner of Beaumont Avenue, just to represent what's going to be there in the future. The other lights are on order, and we expect to receive those at the end of October, and Martin will install those in very fast manner, as he is known for, maybe within a week or two after that.
All right, super. And so we see the work being done on the east side of the street. Is west side will be done as well, or?
Yeah, that's correct. Both sides. The right-of-way there is roughly 10 feet, so, or maybe 12 feet. So the concrete will extend on both sides from the curb to public right-of-way. And unfortunately, some of those buildings are about a foot off public right-of-way, so there is a foot of gray standard concrete that each tenant will, or each business will have to stain or replace on their own.
Okay, all right, thank you, appreciate the update. Anything else? Okay, and so we,
I think
well,
it's a
yeah,
receive
so
and file.
ready for a motion, and it's a simple one there.
Yeah, I can make a motion to receive
know,
and
it's
file the
adopt.
Parks Master, oh
Nope,
wait,
you're off by one, right there.
to adopt the downtown revitalization plan as presented.
All right, thank you, I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voight?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you, Joel. So on to item G3, authorization for access to California Department of Tax and Fee Administration sales and use tax records. And we'll have a report by Joel as well.
Certainly. So this is very administrative. The state just asks that cities identify people that are capable of accessing confidential sales tax data. The last time the city did this was in 2002. There's a couple positions that are referenced in that resolution that no longer exist within the city structure. So this resolution is actually designed to be evergreen. It just designates the city manager and then anyone designated by the city manager as capable of receiving this. And so with the new adoption of this resolution, then the city will issue a letter to the state whenever there's a change in people that should be, that should have access to this confidential information.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you. Any questions from council or a motion?
Mayor, I'll make the motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont authorizing the examination of sales or tax or transactions and use tax records.
I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voight?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. All right, thank you, Joel. On to item G4, authorize changes to the uniform compensation plan and position allocation table, and a staff report by Carrie Mendoza. Thanks, guys.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. You have the uniform compensation plan and position allocation table in front of you this evening. It adds the new classifications that were approved and budgeted in the fiscal year 24-25 budget. Everything from your lifeguard to the addition of a senior planner, which you all met her last meeting, I believe. We're always evolving and looking at different positions, and we do have 2 additional changes on top of the budget changes, and one was to retitle a budget specialist to budget analyst to more industry standards, so we can begin the recruitment for that position. And the city manager's office seeks to add a community development director back to the city's classification list. So with that, there's no fiscal impact at this time as there are vacancies. We will bring those back prior to any positions being filled for a budget adjustment mid-year.
All right, thank you. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you, council. Questions, discussion, or motion?
If we have no discussion, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
All right. So I move to approve the attached uniform compensation plan, to approve the addition of 1 community development director, to approve the elimination of 1 budget specialist, and approve the addition of 1 budget analyst.
I'll second that.
Sorry.
You're fine. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voight?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So on to item G5, agreement for the purchase of mitigation bank credits for Second Street Extension, and staff report by Mr. Robert Vestal.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a slide, one slide for you.
All right.
All right. So Second Street Extension is nearing construction. Staff anticipates bidding the project for construction in November of this year. Construction is anticipated to take approximately 1 year. And grading should commence in January if all goes well, and paving should follow in the warmer months, May and June. The project has a construction budget of 5.5 million. Our current estimate is approximately 4 million. However, staff has engaged a independent consultant to verify those quantities. We certainly don't want to be blindsided when we receive bids, and in this climate, we anticipate some shock. The final step prior to bidding is finalizing the regulatory permits and NEPA. NEPA was tentatively approved as part of the community project fund, excuse me, NEPA was tentatively approved, but as part of the community project funding, congressional directed spending through HUD, we will need to have HUD approve and issue a notice authorizing bid. We did get some tentative commitment dates from HUD that it's about a 15-day turnaround time, so we don't anticipate a delay from HUD. So tonight's item is the last step in the regulatory permitting. The project cannot mitigate the disturbance to sensitive ephemeral streams, which are streams that only occur for a very short time on site, and subsequently the city must pay for off-site mitigation. The mitigation bank is Skunk Hollow, and the cost is $200,000. That concludes my presentation, and staff is available for discussion.
All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Mr. Martinez?
Is the 200,000 a part of that budget, 5 budget? Or is that something separate?
No, it'll come out of the project budget.
It'll come out the whole project budget, okay.
The total project budget that we currently have is 5.8 million.
5.8, okay. All right, thank you.
And we were expecting you with your revised numbers around 5.1, you said? Did I hear that right?
Our current estimate is approximately 4 million. Our construction budget is 5.5.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions or a motion?
I'll move to authorize the city manager to execute an agreement for the sale of credits in the amount of $200,000 for the purchase of mitigation bank credits associated with CIP R12 2nd Street extension.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. Okay, on to item G6, third amendment to the professional services agreement with EXP US Services, Inc., and we have a staff report by Dustin Christensen. Welcome, Dustin. Is your microphone on?
It is now.
All right, thank you, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The Beaumont Master Drainage Plan, Line 2, Stage 1 project includes the construction of approximately 4,800 feet of storm drain. The storm drain starts at the intersection of 6th Street and Chestnut. It continues until it empties along 1st Street at the Berkshire Channel. The line will outlet in the Berkshire Channel at approximately 102 inches of diameter. In addition to the storm drains, several appurtenances such as catch basins, inlets, connector pipes, and other laterals that are less than 36 inches will also be constructed. The project is funded by a cooperative agreement with the Riverside County Flood Control and Water Conservation District, who have allocated $5 million towards the project. The flood control's contribution will be to fund the design, the administration, and the construction of the project. Ultimately, Flood Control District will own, operate, and maintain all the facilities for the storm drain, and the city will own, operate, and maintain all of the appurtenances. The project is currently at 60% design level, and tonight's amendment is for additional environmental work. The original environmental scope was based on providing a categorical exemption under CEQA by keeping the proposed storm drains within the street right-of-way. However, during design and as a result of a hydraulic study that was performed, showed that the existing storm drain was too small to tie into and recommended a larger outlet of 102 inches into the Berkshire Channel. And so this will also require a new head wall in the channel. And so as a result of work within the channel, the required environmental documentation will now be an ISMND, Initial Study Mitigated Negative Declaration. And so the proposed environmental work also includes coordination with regulatory agencies and additional technical studies. And the additional fee for the work, $73,355, which makes the new contract amount $597,420. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm here for any questions you may have.
All right, thank you, Dustin. Do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you. Ms. Martinez, I see a light on under there.
Oh, no.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. White.
I just want to verify, I can see on here we had 600 for the design, so this does keep us within budget.
Correct.
Okay, I have no other
Okay,
questions.
you want to make a motion while you got the floor?
Sure. I will, unless there's any other questions from council. I will move to approve the third amendment to the professional services agreement for EXP US Services, Inc. for the Beaumont Master Drainage Plan MDP Line 2 Stage 1 project, CIP 2019-019, with a new total contract amount not to exceed $597,420.
A second?
All right, thank you, and roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you, and thank you, Dustin. On to item G7, authorize the city manager to sign a joint request for contract reassignment for California Public Policy Group, Inc., and our staff report by our city manager, Elizabeth Gibbs.
Thank you, Mayor. In September of last year, City Council entered into a professional services agreement.
Can you pull that a little closer to you?
Yep.
There you go.
Sure can. In September of '23, City Council entered into a professional services agreement with Rennie Public Law Group. They're doing business as Rennie Public Policy Group, and they have requested a reassignment of their contract to California Public Policy Group. And in the contract that City Council approved, it does authorize the city, the request has to come to the city in order for the reassignment, and so I received a letter to do that. And the Sharon Gonzalez, our representative with RPPG, is actually on Zoom. If council has any questions, it is a formality. It's the same consulting individuals, employees, same location, same pay every month, same services. So nothing's changing other than they're requesting a reassignment. And that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Do you have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
All right, thank you. Council questions, discussion, or a motion? Ms. Voigt, did you have any? I see you flipping
No,
through
I
the
have
computer.
no, I'm good.
Okay. All right, Ms. Martinez?
I'll make a motion if we have.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I do want to comment that I am very much satisfied with their performance, so I really.
We are too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
So, all right, so I'll make the motion to authorize the city manager to execute the assignment of the city's current service contract from Renee Public Law Group, LLP, to California Public Policy Group, Inc.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes. All right, thank you. And so on to item G8, designation of General Assembly delegate and alternate. And we're going to have a staff report by Nicole Wheelwright.
Good evening, council. This item is for the designation of the General Assembly delegate and alternates. The League of California Cities is going to have their annual conference this October 16th through 18th. And during that assembly, city officials can participate in the development of policies by the way of petitions. In order to do so, each city has to select a voting delegate and 2 alternates. In December of 2023, Mayor Finn appointed Councilmember White as the delegate and himself as the alternate. Cal Cities is requiring 1 additional alternate be selected. I've confirmed with Councilmember White that he is good with being the delegate and he plans to attend to vote if there are any items. So this item is just to appoint another alternate and confirm those original designations.
Okay, thank you. And do we have any public comments on the matter?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay, thank you. And so I plan to attend the event, and I believe Mr. Martinez does as well. So, Mr. Martinez, would you like to be that second alternate?
I'll be the alternate.
All right.
You didn't want to voluntold, you know, Mr. Lara?
Well,
or
I
anything?
there was a rumor that he did want to do that, and I thought about it, but I figured as long as White's good, because if something happens in my classroom and I have to go early, I don't want to miss
Okay.
it. But
And I
you'll-
will not be in attendance.
All right, and I plan to be there, so I think we'll
I
have it
think I'm good
covered.
with
So.
alternate. Okay.
Okay.
All right, very good.
And do we
Do you need a?
Yes,
need
I
a
do need a
motion?
motion.
Okay, then I will move to select
It's,
Mayor Finn, Councilmember White
White.
as the first alternate, and Councilmember Martinez as the second alternate.
Correct.
All right, I'll second that. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. All right, so on to item G9, approval of the city attorney invoices for the month of August 2024.
And because this involves my law firm, I'll recuse myself.
Okay, thank you. And then just last check-in, do we have any public comments?
I have no written requests. Mia, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers.
Okay, thank you. And council discussion or a motion?
Nope.
I have no discussion at this point, and I'll move to approve the invoices in the amount of $114,269.09.
I'll second that. And roll call, please.
Councilmember Martinez?
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt?
Yes.
Mayor Finn?
Yes, thank you. Updates and discussion, and Ms. Gibbs, you have that this evening?
I do. Actually, I'm going to invite Sharon Gonzalez, who's on Zoom, to give you an update on AB 98 and SB 937. You should have copies of the veto letters that we sent to the governor, and Sharon can go into further detail as to what's happening. I don't believe, as of right now, the governor has vetoed either one of those bills. Sharon?
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Sharon Gonzalez, Director of Government Affairs for soon to be the California Public Policy Group. So since your last meeting, or, kind of the big thing to note is that August 31st was the end of session. And it really was, every year I say it's unique and kind of different, but again, it, held true this year too. AB 98 is a bill that the city took an opposed position on late in session. It was a gut and amend, meaning that the language of an existing bill was completely stripped and the current language of AB 98 was inserted. It was inserted on Wednesday afternoon, August 26th, I believe, and it had to move through the process very quickly, being heard in Senate local government on Thursday, Senate appropriations on Friday, and then it was eligible to be taken up Saturday evening. So what AB 98 does is it makes numerous restrictions on logistics centers and warehouses. It really targets communities and warehouses in Riverside and San Bernardino County, which is what's really troublesome. In addition to creating kind of really vague definitions for what a sensitive receptor is, it also would require jurisdictions within San Bernardino and Riverside County to update their circulation element by 2026 and be subject to fines of $50,000 every 6 months if that is not updated. Further restrictions in the bill include updating your truck routes, and really the biggest problem with the bill is the process in which it was introduced. It was, as mentioned, introduced with 3 days before session ended, with a lot of not a lot of time to really vet what actual consequences would be, but it also had a lot of opposition. So this bill was introduced at the request of the speaker. They had held a stakeholder group for about a month with one member of the environmental justice community and the business community as part of those stakeholder groups. Not one organization that represented local government had a seat at the table, despite the fact that it is the chair of the local government committee in the assembly who introduced the bill and spent 20 years as a city planner. So extremely problematic, pushed through the process with the promise of a lot of cleanup legislation should the bill get signed by the governor. There was a lot of opposition to the bill, including every local government organization. We had a number of environmental justice groups, and we also had business groups outside of Cal Chamber who were opposed to the bill. So right now, the bill did get out of, the bill is on the governor's desk, and there is a huge push to get this bill vetoed, putting a lot of pressure both on the governor's legislative office as well as his Office of Economic Development, which would be the entity that would be responsible for really administering this bill should it get through. So that was a bill that we took a last minute opposed position on. The other bill is SB 937 by Senator Weiner. And what this bill does is it looks to restrict development fees until certificate of occupancy has been issued. And it further locks in those impact fees prior to the issuance of a building permit. So there are situations when it could be 5 years between, the issuance of a permit to the time a certificate of completion is complete, and a local agency would be permitted to have, to abide by those fees that were initially stated prior to the issuance of the building permit. So that's another bill that we've got a request for a veto. The governor does have till the end of the month to sign and veto all the bills that are currently on his desk. He's been signing things pretty slowly. And, I'll just end with, we've got probably over 400 bills still on his desk. So we're working with staff right now to secure a time later this fall or winter to go over a full review of the legislative session as well as the election, to give you a full implication of what's to come, what has happened as well as what's to come. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Sharon. And Mayor, I just want to add that for the rest of the council, we did send an email to the Department of Economic Development and the governor's office requesting a call with the mayor and that office, and we have not heard yet. Sharon is the point of contact, but we did send that email so that the mayor has a chance to speak with somebody in the office urging the need to veto AB 98.
All right, thank you. Do we have any questions from council? Okay, well, appreciate the update. Thank you very much. And
Thank you, Sharon.
Mayor, if I could interrupt, we do have a caller on the line.
Oh, yes, okay, go ahead.
Mia, you can go ahead and transfer them through. Caller, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Go right ahead. You're on with council.
Thank you. Yes, this is Ron Roy from Fairway Canyon, and I'm asking the City Council to discuss the elements of AB 98 and indicate which provisions they object to and why, or if there's any elements they support or areas that can be improved. AB 98, although not perfect, takes a step in the right direction in giving residents greater protections against warehouses. Our council is failing to recognize that developers have a vested monetary interest in approving their projects and therefore will use data to support approval. There's never been a warehouse developer whose studies lead to a recommendation denying their project. Not once. They always recommend approval. So the council is failing to recognize that there will always be inherent bias in the developer's staff reports to cause their preferred outcome of approval. Again, AB 98 does not go as far as it should, but it does provide more protections for residents' health and well-being than before. AB 98 sets a minimum threshold of council compliance. It requires the city council to demonstrate to residents they've researched a project adequately to meet higher standards of protections. Ultimately, given our council's history, I hope that the state eventually takes over the police power of warehouse project review and approval and denial. Warehouse developers have too much sway over the city council, and AB 98 helps protect residents from this undue influence. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Along with the caller's question and having looked at the highlights of AB 98 and thinking of our land use policy that we have in place, or good neighbor policy as we call it, there are many things that we have at the city level that are even more restrictive, but I understand more of the issue with this is local control. Is there something to your knowledge that is greatly more restrictive in the bill than what we currently have in our plan?
Not off the top of my head. The biggest issue that I think the council's position should be, as Sharon explained, this bill was a gut and amend, literally 72 hours. There was no public input, there was no stakeholder input, there was no local government input. In essence, the legislator is taking the control from local government, which is what we don't want. And if there was some input or, some time where we could work through our lobbyist, with the legislator to come up with something, we would certainly be happy to do that, but we were never given the opportunity. We do have what generally is called a good neighbor policy that I believe is satisfactory to the community, ensuring a safe plan for warehouses and logistics in the city. And I do think council's track record, you did not approve a warehouse that was not in the right location. You did approve another one that you believed was in the right location. And so as much as I understand the caller's position, this is about local control and the state taking that away from this body.
All right, thank you for your insight. Ms. Martinez.
Yeah, it's just for Sharon on the line there. Sharon, if you're still there, you mentioned that there were actually some environmental groups against this. Can you just go and expand just briefly to show that this is not just a one-sided that opposed this bill? What was
Yeah, absolutely. I think there were a number of groups, a number of environmental justice organizations that were opposed to the bill. The biggest, much to what Ms. Gibbs mentioned, you had one environmental justice group and one business group at the table. And the reason you had so many other environmental justice groups opposed to the bill was because they've done a lot of work in communities to go further than what's allowed in the bill. And it really takes away some of the, in addition to local control, but like a lot of the work that the business community and the environmental justice communities are doing in local communities to not only look at the environmental impacts, but also try to prop them up economically in areas that have, historically been disadvantaged.
And then you mentioned something about penalties to cities in there.
Yes. So in San Bernardino and Riverside County, cities will be required to update their circulation element by 2026. So this bill is going to go into effect in 2025, and you'll have 1 year to update your circulation element. If you don't get it updated, there's penalties of up to $50,000 every 6 months. Jurisdictions outside of San Bernardino and Riverside counties, they have up until 2028 to update their circulation element.
Right. And so I just wanted to comment that, on the surface, this is a lot of people will say, well, this is anti-warehouse and we're for that, but be careful because this is really something that's flawed, and we've mentioned all the flaws. There was not enough time for input on this, and it could be better, and it's got some good things, yes, I do admit, but overall, I think this is one of the reasons why we have to be careful on trying to get things in the last minute and then just going forward and say, oh, yeah, sounds great. And then you have all the correction that comes after that because they find out that things aren't feasible. 2028 is not feasible to get things going for zero emissions. And for that reason, I'll have to support the veto, not because I support warehouses all the time, but because this is a flawed bill. And it takes away our control as government, which is one of our prime platforms for our council. So I just want to mention that because I know some people will be upset with me, but again, those reasons alone is why I support the veto.
Ms. Foyt, go ahead. Thank you, Mr. Martinez.
Yeah, I too appreciate the colors request. And as mentioned and echoed, local control is obviously an important component of this for us. And I think the way in which the bill was moved through is not an appropriate manner. And for that, I don't think that we can support this. I think that we can come back to the table on further discussions, but at this point, I too support the veto.
All right, thank you. And I do have a quick question. So the Gutton amendment, that was who was it that pushed that through? And where are they from? Do they represent Riverside or San Bernardino County?
So the bill was really initiated by the speaker, who is from San Benito County. The author of the bill was Assemblymember Carrillo, who I believe is from the Palmdale area. So from Palmdale, however, he did spend 20 years as a planner, and he's the chair of the local government committee in the assembly. So that's also troubling that it didn't occur to have local government have a seat at the table. And had we had that seat, we would have been able to talk about some of the, the city's good neighbor policy as well as what other jurisdictions have done.
Okay. All right, thank you for the info. Any other discussion then?
Mayor, I'd just like to mention one thing. I know that there are concerns around warehouses, and I agree that I often find myself kind of in this this give or take. But I think, as mentioned previously with this council, it's difficult to find the balance in a city without kind of grappling with some of these questions. So while they're not taken lightly, we do have to look at a balanced city. And I think that that's what this council has done consistently, has looked for, as Ms. Gibbs noted, to put these in the right place. And so I think continuing to stick with our plus plan and really kind of pushing forward with that is what is going to bind us, as a goal moving forward, and just kind of to keep with that. I think this balance is so important for the continued growth of this city. And without that, we're not going to be able to fund large infrastructure projects. We're not going to be able to push forward with some of the other issues that we are faced with or brought to. Parks are a huge thing. And we know that with Stewart Park, these are expensive, and being able to allocate those funds. And these aren't fun conversations by any means, but they're necessary at times. And so I appreciate the caller's comments, but just know that they too, this is a give and take at times.
All right, thank you. So appreciate that, and thank you, Sharon, for the information, and Ms. Gibbs. And so we'll move on to item I, our economic development update. And Ms. Gibbs, do you have that? Oh, Joel.
Sure.
Should have known.
So September 11th, the Economic Development Committee convened. The only item on the agenda was the redevelopment plan that was presented tonight. They were fully supportive of the plan. And so we'll, after tonight, move forward with the implementation. And then we've got a couple upcoming items that are identified for future agenda items, some new incentive programs potentially for council consideration too, that we're excited about.
All right, super. Okay, thank you, sir. Sorry about that. And we don't have a treasurer here tonight, so our city clerk report.
We're
All
good.
right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And city attorney. All right, nothing tonight. And back to you, Ms. Gibbs, for city manager report.
Just a reminder, your State of the City is Thursday.
It is?
And Saturday is the Luce Libre event at the Chatney Center, September 21st at 4 p.m. And we invite everybody to celebrate Hispanic heritage.
All right, appreciate that. I'm going to add in, there's last chance for tickets with the Chamber of Commerce for Thursday night State of the City, so get your tickets now and appreciate the support.
They're almost sold out.
All right. Anything else?
Nope.
All right, thank you.
I do actually.
Oh,
have
sure,
one
go
more
ahead,
announcement.
Joel.
We have got a downtown business meeting on the
Oh, yeah, that's
24th,
right.
Here in the auditorium from 6 to 8. There will be dinner and discussion.
And that is on what day?
The 24th.
24th. Thank you, sir. And then
Catered.
cater, hey, if you feed them, they show up, right? All right, item N, future agenda items. We have a list there. Do we have any additions to that? Okay, seeing none there. And so on to our council reports. Mr. Martinez, we'll start with you.
I'm good for tonight, Mayor.
Okay, Ms.
Happy
White?
anniversary.
Thank you.
We held our first collaborative meeting here with the city on the 5th. I think it was the 5th. Good turnout, great information, and excited to continue to hold that meeting here. I also attended the Economic Development Committee. Thank you for those that presented there. And we had an entire committee that day, I think, to welcome Joel. So that was pretty awesome to have everybody there in the room and to give a whole team, I think was awesome.
All right, very good, thank you. On the 5th of September, I attended the T-Now meeting, and they talked about Rail Safety Month, so everybody always be careful when you're at a rail crossing and look both ways. And on the 10th, I attended our PASCOM meeting. They talked about a major expo that's held in California every year, and the website for that is disasterexpocalifornia.com. So if you want to learn more about that kind of stuff, there's a good resource there. And then had a really interesting presentation at our Beaumont Chamber Breakfast on the 13th. We had Chris Gray, who is the Deputy Executive Director for WRCOG, that's Western Riverside Council of Governments, and he gave a presentation on demographic, transportation, and development data and trends, a sub-regional perspective. So it's kind of a mouthful there. But it was a great overhead and a forecasting presentation, and so I forwarded the presentation to Ms. Gibbs, and she'll send it out to the council, and there's some good food for thought and for us for some long-term planning in the area, and especially for Beaumont and the Pass area. So with that, we will adjourn tonight's meeting at 7:36. That was nice and early.